All right, everybody in Facebook land, this is Eric Malzone, and I'm excited to bring another live broadcast to you specifically for fitness industry professionals, but this actually goes out to anybody who's running a small business or a corporation as well. And my good friend Jim Crowell, I'll bring him on here in a minute, from the CEO of OPEX. Very smart guy, very experienced guy, and he's got great insights that we can all leverage and share today. But do me a favor, if you can hear me, go ahead and please just give me a thumbs up. Let me know that my audio sounds good. And if you can, if you would like to, go ahead and start a watch party. I'm not exactly sure what those are yet, to be honest with you. They sound cool, and it would be great to do that for us as well. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my friend Jim in here, and we'll get started, get some questions prepared as we go. But the big topic is how to grow your cash flow, how to look at the assets and equity within your business to make some tough decisions nowadays, and what that all means. So here comes Jim. All right, Jim, how you doing, man?
Hey, Eric, it's good to see you, man. I appreciate you having me on today. I think we're going to have some fun with this. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting. You and I were talking beforehand, and it's just really a lot of really interesting conversations. And I've been doubling down on the amount of content I'm producing because everything's happening so fast that one of the reasons I'm doing a live format now versus just strictly my podcast is because by the time I produce a podcast, edit it, and get it out there, it's like irrelevant content due to how fast it's changing.
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant might be a strong word. I know why you're saying that, but but fewer people are listening to podcasts because they're not driving. So it's like I want to be on Facebook or I want to be on YouTube, and I'm at home, so I'm just going to click into those places. And so you've got to be where people are, right? So I think it's this really smart play from you.
Yeah, I didn't intend it to be that way. It just kind of happened. But I'll take the compliment. Jim, man, give everyone a quick background of you, because I know you've lived a lot of multiple business lives, right? But give us a little synopsis of your background.
Yeah, I've always been interested in business and understanding how systems and complex systems work together. And so I originally got really interested in trading and stocks and commodities. And so when I got out of college, I became a commodities trader for a hedge fund. Learned a ton about how the world works and how cash flow moves, and learned a little about accounting and stuff like that. And then I wanted to kind of change the avenue that I went down. I was a collegiate athlete. I played tennis for Penn State. And so I wanted to get back more into the physical world. So I left the hedge fund, opened up my own gym, CrossFit gym, opened up a second gym, grew those really effectively. And after 4 years, I sold those CrossFit gyms. And ultimately, I came down to Arizona to work for OPT at the time, which is now OPEX. So I've been at the helm of OPEX and now Big Dogs Remote Coaching, and I sit on the board of Brandex for kids coaching. And so I'm lucky enough to have some different lenses to kind of see this coaching and fitness and education and fitness tech type of a world emerge. And so I don't have that many answers, but I like to ask a lot of questions. And so I've seen some interesting things, and this virus time is really interesting. And I'm saying that interesting to say that I'm legitimately interested in the conversations that people are having in this, because I'm trying to understand each individual person's point of view, because that is their reality. So there's a lot of people that are making comments that are clearly based in an emotional response. And that emotional response might be fear, or it could be excitement, right? But the more emotional we get, the worse decisions we make. And so I've been having this conversation with our coaches and gym owners and clients all over the world so often, is that we have to ask ourselves in this moment, are we taking the time to calm ourselves down before we make serious decisions? And I think that in many cases in fitness, the answer is no. People aren't thinking about this. And that's fair, because we're hardwired to not be able to get past the emotional side of it. But that's where I think a lot of people need to put some systems into play for themselves to calm down before they make serious decisions in this moment. You've got massive stimulus coming down the pipe in the United States. It's like, Do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I think I have a business that is viable if I keep it in business? Those are tough questions. And I know when we get to the cash flow part, I'll try to weave some thoughts back into those questions. But a lot of gym owners, a lot of people in fitness right now have a very uncertain playing field. They're seeing technology get better and better and better, yet they've taken their classes or their clients online with really weak technology or a really weak user experience. It's not working out that well for most people. So now the question becomes, what do I do now? And the emotion's getting higher and higher because the seriousness of the financial hit to the coaches and gym owners is becoming more and more in my house right now. So we could go, so many different ways down that rabbit hole, but I think it's important for people to ask themselves that emotional question when they're making these big decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we had a huge rush of adrenaline, right? When everything started cracking down, right? Everybody was like, I got to pivot now. I got to pivot hard. I got to do this. I'm going to stream my stuff online. I'm going to do all that. And I understand it's totally understandable and natural reaction. Now we're starting to settle in to like what kind of the temporary norm may be. And that's when, the more rational decisions will start to come about, and we'll start to see some people really excel and some people make some hard decisions. And I think the big question a lot of small business owners and gym owners have to ask themselves is, do I want to make it through this? Mm-hmm. Right. And that's a hard decision, because a lot of people are like, you know what, I actually just started a small business and I bought myself a job and I hate it.
Yep.
So now maybe it's your time to get out of this with, some pride intact and maybe some, some stimulus to kind of help you get out of it, whatever that may look like. I'm not a stimulus expert. I'm far from it. But, that's a big decision. And I think that's the question that most people should start with, and then going from there. And then once that question is answered, then we can get into like the meat of the stuff that we're going to talk about now, which is what does it mean to manage your cash flow? How does someone know what kind of equity and assets they have in their business, and how do they start making educated decisions during this time? So provide us some insight on what you've been seeing and how you start to guide people through that decision-making process.
Yeah, you put me onto something that I think is a really good segue. I do think that things are calming down just because it's becoming normal, right? So it's not changing at a historic pace in this moment. If we get some sort of resurgence or whatever, okay, now emotions get back high because the landscape in front of our faces are changing fast. So it's calming down. What that means, though, is that the businesses that are going to win are going to be the most consistent. So I think what we might see is, okay, we're calming down, and you're going to have a large, I don't want to say large, but you're going to have a percentage of gyms, coaches, etc., who are going to fall off in their consistency because they're getting complacent. Now, we could look at that same concept when they were in brick and mortar before the virus hit. The businesses who are constantly going out and engaging people are having more success. Now they're going to have to engage digitally. And if they don't engage digitally, they're not going to make it out. And then if they could make it out, they're not going to thrive when they come out of it. So I think your question is extremely relevant, and it is a very difficult one for people to face. But you do have to ask yourself, if I want to be consistent for a year with something like this, because people are forgetting that when we come out of this, we cannot come out of it full force. You can't, because if we do, it'll be a big resurgence, and that will overwhelm the hospitals, because we have no such thing as herd immunity at this point, meaning we don't have the structure set up for us to have enough people immune or who have had the disease to stop a resurgence. So we're going to come out of it slowly, and there's going to be waves of how we come out of it. So that's going to mean that maybe gyms are first, maybe they're not first. If you can open your gym, do you have to be 6 feet apart from everybody? I think those are very real constraints that people are going to face. I also think that a real constraint is economic, well, not just growth, but just economics in general are going to be challenging for the next while. And when I say while, I don't mean a month. I mean 6-12 months, we're going to be trying to figure out how to come out of this thing, because a vaccine will not exist for 15 months. So you can't kill the virus. The virus is here. for 15 months. So we got to deal with what's the most effective way to come out of that. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that we weren't lucky in this as OPEX or as big dogs. We were very lucky because we know how to coach one-to-one and we know how to coach online. So we've been talking about that for years and years and years, right? However, in this moment, the market now gets it. So if you are a local gym owner, if you are trying to build products online, if you're doing anything, you have to ask yourself what your market understands. And then you have to push content out to your market that enables them to continue that experience of growth within that concept, right? So I love learning about language, communication, finance, trade. Like I love all that stuff. I want to understand how the world fits together. And so I'm going to seek out different avenues to learn that. I know you're similar, right? So you're constantly trying to model how different people are building their own businesses and concepts, and you do that through conversations. And so what do these coaches and gym owners need to do in order to learn the things they need to learn to serve their audience better? That's a really important one. And, when we get into the cash flow conversation, I am not naive to think that most gym owners or most fitness professionals, they don't want to talk about it. Or they don't want to do anything about it, or they're afraid of it, or they don't make enough money now, so they don't even want to go down the rabbit hole of understanding it. But that would have saved a lot of people in this moment, a lot. And so, yes, I'm looking back a little bit, but looking forward, it's no different, because every 10 years, approximately, there's some sort of a downtrend in the economy. This is the virus hitting at year 12 or whatever from 2008. There's going to be something in 5 years or 10 years. And if you don't have equity and assets, i.e. cash in your business, you can't weather anything. And so it's just a matter of time before something, knocks you off your feet. And when you don't have equity, and I'm just going to consider equity net worth, right? When your business doesn't have net worth, you're dead whenever something hits. And this is a 100-year event at this moment. But it doesn't mean that there can't be another virus. It doesn't mean that there can't be another financial crisis. It doesn't mean that there can't be something. September 11th is an example, at least in the very short term. There's always going to be something that's going to clip you. The question is can you survive the clip? Most gym owners can. And what we have to remember, God, I get fired up about this. We have to remember that most of the micro gym concepts have emerged after 2008. So for people listening to this is really important. You haven't experienced any downtrend in the economy, not once. This is the first time you've been hit, and think how dangerous this is. Now, I am saying that the virus is a worse downtrend in the short run for sure than most economic recessions. However, if you're out of business in less than a month, or if you're out of cash in less than 1 month, you've set yourself up poorly to handle any type of crisis. And that's why I think this is such an important topic.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. People have been through a recession before. I started my first business in 08, 09. And so it was just what I knew. I was like, okay, well, this is pretty tough, right? And you have to get creative with it. And there's a lot of, the model has been the fitness model has just been so ripe for disruption for many, many years, right? And we can say that. And if anything we say here offends people, we're not meaning to be offensive. We're just looking at things from a macro scale, right? I'm very empathetic and sympathetic towards each individual situation that's going on there, because they're all different, right? I talk to gym owners who are backed by billion-dollar investors. I'm like, well, that's shocking. So you're going to be okay. I talk to people who are like, I'm second year in my business and I'm not really sure what's going to happen. If my landlord decides to collect all my rent, I'm screwed. It's it. So let's talk about, we talk about equity within a small business. Define that for me.
Yeah, keep in mind, equity is simply a portion of an accounting balance sheet. So I'll try to start very simplistic, and then we'll kind of build on the concept. But equity is merely assets minus liabilities. Assets are things that should make me money in the longer run. Liabilities are things that I owe to other people in the short and the long run. So my assets minus my liabilities equals my equity. The way that it's always connected with me the best, as I've kind of learned this, I'm a big kind of Warren Buffett. I like his thought process on how to view equity and how to return on equity. And generally in his school of thought, he looks at equity as net worth. And I think that that's a really interesting way of looking at the concept for anybody in the fitness industry. We sort of have always put net worth onto ourselves, right? So my net worth is X, right? But not that many businesses put a net worth onto themselves. And I should say small businesses, right? So you've got big stocks out there that certainly put a net worth or, a net worth and a market cap and all these different things on there. But for a small business, it's extremely important to know what you are worth and how that might change in different types of environments. So if I have $100 in the bank and I don't owe anybody any money, then my net worth is $100. It's a simple concept with simple businesses. It gets much more complex as businesses get more complex.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to get across is that you have to be building assets and equity as your business grows. What I have seen far too many gym owners do is they've started their business. Let's just put a number on it. I got $50,000. Okay. I'm going to open my gym. I'm going to buy the equipment. I'm going to do all this stuff. So I got 50 grand to start. And then let's say they spend 30 of it opening their gym, leaving them with $20,000. All right. Now, when I get going, I'm saying I got $20,000 in the bank to grow my business. But day one, maybe my monthly cost structure, rent or supplies and people, and if you do healthcare, anything, right? Let's say my monthly expense structure is $5,000 a month. Okay. I know that that's low, but it helps me do the math, right? So every month I'm going to drop $5,000. So if my revenue is $5,000 from clients and my expenses are $5,000, that means that all things being equal, I'm going to keep $20,000 in the bank. Here's where it goes wrong though, is that a lot of gym owners and a lot of people in fitness business, they build higher cost structures as their revenue's going up, but they don't increase the cash in the business as that's happening. So this is very destructive when something bad comes down the pipeline. So what I want gym owners to think about, I'm just going to say anybody in the fitness industry from now on.
Yep.
I want people thinking about each month that I'm growing my revenue, I need to also be growing the cash that ends up in my business. So if I start with $20,000, I don't care how much ends up in my pocket per se. I care how much ends up in the business, because in the long run, if I reinvest that money smartly in the business, I will end up with more money in my pocket. Now, I understand the caveats that come along with that, meaning like, well, if I put the money in my pocket, maybe I can go invest in other things outside the business. I get it. All I'm saying is that you are making a trade-off decision that is weakening your business. And in the standpoint that says my cost structure day one, in this example, was $5,000, if in 2 years my cost structure is $20,000 and I still only have $20,000 in the bank on a monthly basis, I'm out of business in 1 month if my revenue goes to zero. So most people in the fitness industry are not thinking about that concept. I'm using the term equity net worth because ultimately that is a nice way of saying, am I building my assets faster than I'm building my liabilities? So it's like, okay, I can go get cash, right? I can take out a loan and get $20,000 in cash. But if I keep doing that, my equity is not going to go up. I might just stay at, zero in equity or whatever I started with. It's extremely important to know how you are building that. And that comes into some concepts like retained earnings or whatever, but let me stop there for a second, and turn it back to you, probably because you'll ask a question that'll help.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm walking myself through my own journey, right, as a business owner, and what steps I took and how quick I was to incur additional costs, because I just, if you're a confident business owner, you just always assume that you'll be able to sell your way out of it, right? But in times like this, in unprecedented times, it's just the whole script is flipped. Is there any accounting principles that a lot of people rely on? I would rely on profit first, right, was an excellent model for me.
Yep.
Really started to put things, actually probably saved my business at one point as well. But any accounting systems that you prefer for businesses that that help walk them through and make sure that the equity is growing along with the business?
Yeah, I think profit first is great. So I think that that's a great thought for a lot of people to work through, because it sort of systematizes the whole thing, right? I like to come back to principles, because I think that if somebody understands why they're doing those things, they'll be much more likely to continue to do them. So the principles to me in accounting is that everybody says I'm growing, right? Like everybody says I want to grow, but the principle needs to be, what am I actually growing, right? So it's like, what makes a business valuable? You know, if we're looking at gyms as a very specific idea, there's no such thing as like, I'm going to get 10 times my annual recurring revenue on a gym. That doesn't exist, you know, for a gym owner. That's tech, right? That's something that can scale out massively. The valuation for a gym most of the time is going to come down to, what do I make in profit, and how many years is that profit going to exist? And then what is that valued at today? Like that's essentially how a gym is going to be valued in most cases, because it's a simple monthly recurring revenue business. So the principle has to be, how do I grow the amount of profit that I can earn in the business? That is what makes the business more valuable. I completely understand the idea that, well, I can sell and get more clients in, and that doesn't cost me anything. But generally speaking, the cost structure must go up as the number of clients goes up. Whether your rent goes up, your utilities go up, your supplies go up, your coaching expense goes up, whatever it is, you're going to have to service more clients if you want to make more profit. So if I'm going to make more profit, I'm going to have more cost structure. If I don't build equity, meaning assets minus liabilities, right? If I don't build equity while I'm doing that, the house can fall apart with a difficult time like now. Also, you can't, and keep in mind, now I'm going to get a little theoretical here, because it depends if the business owner can reinvest in the business and successfully earn more profit off of it. So I'm not just going to say that reinvesting in the business automatically creates a better business. It gives you a better probability of growing your business more effectively. Okay, so if I'm going to, let's go back to that $20,000 in the bank. Let's say that I'm able to make $10,000 in revenue and my cost structure is $5,000. So that says that $5,000 is sitting in my business. I choose what I'm going to do with it. I have a choice. I can put all $5,000 in my pocket. I can put all $5,000 back into the bank account that I could use to, you know, be safer, right? Like just have more cash on hand. I can put $5,000 into a project, and hopefully that project over the long run will generate more profit for me. But the principle doesn't change. I need to build more ability to make more profit, because that's what makes my business more valuable. Many, many local gyms are not building that equity portion, so they're doing the same thing every single month. So that means that if they put all that money into their pocket every month, if there is money, because let's be realistic, a lot of gym owners don't have a lot of profit, but if they put all the profit into their pocket, you're starting from the first step every year. So it's like, I got to go out and I got to sell 500 new clients to make the same amount of money that I did last year. I'm not building better systems because I haven't put money into it. I'm not building better, stronger coaches because I haven't put money into it. I'm not necessarily buying my building because I don't have enough capital in the business to ultimately buy the building, because I've put all my profit into my pocket. That is, I know I can hear people listening to this right now being like, God, fuck, like I just don't even want to think about this. Like I don't want to think about this.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this today, Eric, is because people are the most open they've ever been to this conversation. Why? To go back to our first point, because emotions are higher. And if I can anchor this into somebody's soul right now, they're going to be more likely to do it either in their existing business or the next business that they start.
Yes.
And it's exceptionally important. This is not just for safety. This is for growth.
And this goes into the thought behind, first of all, I want to back up because I was smiling because you were talking about like that example when you have $5,000 left at the end of the month, or what do I do with it? And that to me is the exciting part of being in business for yourself, is what do I do with that? Can I get creative? Do I reinvest it? What do I do? That was always the funnest thing, especially as I was growing the first couple of early years in a brick and mortar. You know, you'd sit there at the end of the month, okay, we put this aside, we have this left, what do we do? We have $300 to try to build our business. What do we do with that? Right. And that's fun, right? As long as you stay disciplined, you can get really creative. You'd be amazed what you could do with $300 or whatever that number is. And I do agree. I think that, you know, now is, and I've sat down, there was a couple of times in my business career, I remember sitting down and like, holy shit, I'm working off a 7% profit margin right now. Like, what am I doing? Right. And then you got to make really hard decisions, but those decisions becomes much easier and non-emotional when you look at it from the health of the business and when you know the numbers, right? You just, hey, this is just what I got to do. Right. This has to go on. This is what I have to do.
Yeah. One of the big things that I talk a lot about in our CCP course, because I teach the business portion of CCP, is a concept of strategy, execution, measurement, refinement. You know, so this idea that I need to create a strategy that I have to execute on, I need to measure the strategy so that I can then refine it, so that the next time I do something new, I'm not starting at that step 1. I'm starting at step 2 and then 3 and 4 and 5. And the reason why I think this is relevant is that when you put that type of a process or system in play, it makes system 2, right? It makes your logical brain kick in. Because it's like, okay, I'm now in the measurement portion of it. I'm much less emotional when I get to something like measurement and refinement, if that is a part of my consistent system that I'm putting into play. So I'm a big believer that you have to first get into the right state of mind, you know, in a more calm place if you're going to make good decisions. And so having a process of saying, okay, cool, like, where did this $300 in profit even come from? You know, did I sell my way to 300? Did I retain my way to 300? Let's talk about that. Because if I can find the best opportunities in my own business with the most, let's call it scale, right? Like with the most scale ability behind them, I want to put all $300 of that towards that place, because that's going to make my business stronger. So I think that business owners can really ask themselves great questions if they will take that, you know, 5 minutes to look at where did profit come from and what do I want to do with it. So I think you're spot on. I don't think that most people in the fitness industry are asking themselves that question of what I should do with this money. It's just like, oh yeah, I put profit into my pocket, right? And to your point on profit first, it's like, no, you don't just put all of the profit into your pocket. You put it into some retained earnings, right? That could be a separate bank account if that's going to consistently get you thinking about it. I love it. You know, you could put it back towards safety. Of course, you're going to have to think about taxes and things, right? So you better have enough money for taxes in there. But I think that any business owner needs to understand these types of concepts, because it'll put them in a better position to win. And then on the fitness side, I'm sort of to the point where I am very empathetic about it, but if somebody doesn't want to understand the basics of accounting, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. And so I'm going to tell them that they probably shouldn't be a business owner, because it's going to cost them more money to be a business owner than they could make coaching. So it's like, I want people to make the most amount of money doing what they love the most. Being a business owner for a lot of business owners right now is not what they love doing the most. They just wanted freedom, but they don't have freedom in the current setup that they have.
No,
you know, so you have to build. Yeah, you have to build a good business to have freedom.
Yeah, and it takes time too. I think that's the other thing is, you know, it's funny is James Fitzgerald, right, mentor and coach for me for a long time. You know, and I decided to sell my gyms and move on. He reminded me, is like, hey, whatever you move on to next, just remember it took you 9 years to be competent as a business owner. It's going to take you another 9 to get to where you're at. Right. And I think people see like the 1 to 2 year mark is like, it's not. It's the 5, 8, 10 year mark that's going to make you successful, and you're going to have to build that equity. And you should always be building something as if you're going to sell it anyway. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that right now people are probably making hard decisions, and what they need to take a good look at is the accounting, right? Is the reality situation. Ask themselves, do I want to go down this route of accruing more debt through stimulus packages or whatever it may be? And on the other side, is it going to be worth having this business? And that's a freaking hard question to ask.
Yeah, it's a big question. Yeah, I think your point on the length of time needed is a really important one, because the big concept behind equity is that you should understand how much profit you made versus how much equity you had in your business. So if I have $20,000 in equity, so same first example, 20,000 in cash, no debt, and so I got 20,000 in equity, then if I make $20,000 in profit over the course of 1 year, I've made 100% return on equity. That's beautiful, right? Now, that shouldn't happen forever, because you should be building your equity so that your percentage might go down, but your total profit goes up. So let's say that I reinvested all 20,000 of that profit into the business. So next year I start with 40,000. If I make 100% again, I've made 40,000. Now, I'm not saying 100% is realistic for an entire business career. Not at all. Most large companies and stock S&P type companies, they're hoping for 15% return on equity every year. That's a Buffett type of an investment, 15 to 20% year over year. So it's a really nice metric for a business owner to think about, because it's okay for that number to drop if your equity is going up. But imagine the confidence in your mind if you're like, yeah, my equity's gone up every year. My percentage was maybe 2% lower than what I wanted, but it went up. It's like, oh, awesome, man. Like, there's where my empathy comes into play in a big, big way, is because it's like you're still building. You're not starting from step one year over year over year. Now, I want to be extremely empathetic to the people that have to remove profit to pay their own personal rent and to eat, right? Like, I totally get that. But this is where I do like, systems like Profit First or whatever, because they generally say, okay, I'm putting 50% of my money back in the business, and I'm going to ensure that my personal expense structure each month can handle that. And so you get disciplined with this. You stop spending frivolously so that you can build a business that can pay you more over time. That is a really nice way to grow a solid business that is consistent year in and year out.
Yeah, great points, man. I'm going to, if people want to start asking some questions, I know we have some people watching here, please do. I don't know if my streaming question box here is working, but I got you on my app. Here's a question that everybody's asking in the fitness industry. What's this going to look like? What's the new normal going to be like? What are you thinking? What's kind of, I know it's really early, right? No one fucking knows. But what visions are you starting to formulate as the days go by?
So I'm having a lot of conversations with really interesting technology people that are spinning up a lot of new technology and improving on the technology that's out there. And I'm not just talking about streaming services like Peloton or whatever. I'm talking about making the gym owners or the fitness professionals' lives easier. So there's a lot of kind of coming together of companies right now that are going to try and reinvent the billing, CRM, coaching, nutrition. It's like all that is starting to consolidate. So if I look at the principles of a recession, you start consolidating assets. That is already happening from what I'm seeing. So you're going to see some players that look really big when we come out of this that are going to try and suck up all of the fitness professionals, which could be wonderful, right? If they have the product that can do it. Secondly, I don't think that things like brick and mortar gyms are going away. I don't think that coaching is going away at all. I think that it's going to exist in a huge way. But I do think that the businesses that come out of this, they're going to have to be stronger than they were before. So I go back to the idea that many of these micro gyms that started post 2008. So I think that the idea of a franchise or whatever, that's going to look much better to a lot of people than it once did, because they have stronger systems in play for things like accounting. I do think that you're going to see actually a dichotomy of how the public reacts and responds to this. I think a lot of people are certainly going to go down the I'm going to be the most healthy version of myself route, because that's going to help me defend against something like a virus. But I also think that a huge number of people are going to say, screw it. Like, I'm just going to live the way that I want to live, because if COVID gets me, COVID gets me. So like many other things, I do think we're going to split apart even farther. And generally the way that I view this is that it's going to come back to Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's like, if I have safety, if I have belonging, if I have, structure, now I can start thinking about that really high-end supplement regimen and biohacking model and high-end coaching. And so I think that that's going to continue to play out. But I think a lot more people are going to be open to doing fitness online, a lot. And I think that coaches have to be able to deliver product to people that doesn't stop. So the idea of an Amazon Prime for fitness, I can't imagine is more than 12 months away. So think about, like, Equinox was already working on it. It's like, okay, so now I've got an online portion, I've got an in-person gym place I can go to, and you guys are working on hotels. It's like, that's interesting.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see a lot more collaboration of an online experience, an in-person experience, maybe something slightly outside of fitness. So why not have connection points to events like obstacle course races or marathons? Or it's like, this is going to consolidate. The smartest people in the industry are going to go buy up distressed companies that have a lot of potential value, and they're going to go into one system like this. And I think that, because if you can control the eyes that go into content, media, etc., and then you have products on the backside of all those eyes that work for coaches and for clients, that's a pretty powerful thing to have when you start to think about all the data that's going to be aggregated into it. So I know that that's some different versions of what I think is happening, but I think that it's going to take longer than people think to get quote unquote normal. But I don't think for a second that smart companies are not putting some pieces together right now. I mean, I know I'd like to think that we're on the more intelligent side. Sometimes I certainly prove myself wrong on that. But we're working on some things right now that I think will be pretty eye-opening to folks, in the next couple months.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately, I just released a podcast this morning, actually, with the CEO of Gold's Gym, Adam Zaitsev, and it was, a lot of it was, we talked about the hybridization of the in-person technological, whatever that looks like. It's happening much faster than we thought it would happen. It's happening right now, right? And I know, just privy to conversations that I've had, that what you're talking about, the consolidation, the buy-up of small companies, is happening. It's happening right now, right? Companies like Sequoia are out there just, making big moves, right? People with cash is king, and we're going to see something that looks something not unrecognizable, but something very different on the other side of this. And I believe that one model, which I wouldn't be sad if it goes away, is a straight up time for money exchange that happens in the fitness profession. I think it's going to become more of the results oriented coaching, right? Like right now, if you're a great coach and you have a great relationship with your clients and you're still helping them get to what is their end result desired, then you're still in a good shape, because that relationship is strong. If your only vessel to do that was, well, we got to meet 3 times a week for an hour and we got to count reps, right? If that was your model, then that's in trouble. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to adapt quickly. But I think there's actually and I'm, hopelessly optimistic most of the time, there's a great opportunity now for the whole fitness industry to kind of level up to where we want to be as a profession, right? Becoming coaches and community leaders and much more than just someone who counts reps at a certain time.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm hoping for.
I wish we had another 60 minutes to go down this rabbit hole. I think one of the things that I keep reminding myself about is that the environment has certainly changed, but people's psychology can't change, right? Like our hard wiring can't change. So I think that it's really important for us to look at what has worked in the past and why. And obviously you have to define success, right? But what has worked in the past and why did it work in the past? and what can we learn about that can lead us to a better business model moving forward. So when I say I think that group training is still going to exist, I think it's going to exist because people like to train together and sweat together and, be in a fun environment. So that I don't think is going to change. But I do think that something like virtual reality and the technology that's coming down the pipeline will make it more accessible for people to do that in their home or, with their friends or what have you. But I also think that there's always something that's just a little bit extra when you're in person. Right. So I think that there's going to be a resurgence of people wanting to be with people, but just a little bit different. And so if we can understand kind of that psychology a little bit, and I'm really kind of talking end consumer, there's going to be some good opportunities for people in fitness for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting that I heard before the virus, actually, there's a pretty big contingent of people who are working to put gyms right into the insurance chain, so, and what I mean by that is insurance companies are going to pay for gym memberships.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're in the fitness industry, it's like, I don't have an answer to this one yet, but it's something you better think about, because, when you start thinking about the global system, there's always a global system of cash and influence. And insurance is a massive influencer out there. So if you think that you're never going to take insurance, maybe you won't, but it's going to be a decision that you will face probably in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think insurance companies are a huge unknown player to most fitness professionals and the way they work. I mean, you look at the growth of corporate health and wellness, and who's the big driver behind that? It's insurance companies. And I could, I have a lot of really, really big examples of that, but once again, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. So, Jim, man, always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I
would do this.
We had to hit the tough topic. Yeah, me too, man. It's something that I know a lot of people they don't want to look at in this exact moment, but it's just so clearly become what most people who are struggling the most in fitness didn't do. And let me hit one more piece on this.
Please.
Even if you're a coach and not a business owner, I still think that you should be looking at this whole equity thing the same way. It's just you could just call it net worth, right? So is your net worth going up as you're a coach? If the answer is no, then you need to figure out what part of that equation isn't working. Are you not making enough money for the expense structure, which, by the way, you need to keep your expense structure low? Are you not making enough cash to do that? Okay, great. Let's put a strategy in place to make more cash. Or do you have an expense structure that's obscenely high? Great. Let's put something together to lower that cost structure. God, not to go down the psychology rabbit hole, but it's like, yes, we are procrastinators. Yes, we push things off. We are hardwired to do that. But if you want to succeed and have a future in this business of fitness, you have to increase equity, which equals your net worth. So I don't care if it's business or a coach, somebody who's just getting started, get that equation right, and you will be much happier in the short and long run.
Yeah, or personal wealth accumulation. It's all the same.
Totally.
The math is the same everywhere you go, man. Jim, thanks again, man. I appreciate you spending this much time. I know you got a lot of things going on right now. So, if people want to reach us, we're both on Facebook. So just hit us up, and man, we'll see you on the flip side. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, everybody.